Hey everybody, welcome back to Texas 911 Dispatcher. That's me. My name is Curtis, and today we're going to be looking at the actual applications that you will be filling out to become a 911 dispatcher. So stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to Texas 911 Dispatcher. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about the actual application and how to fill it out, make sure that you fill it out completely, and just kind of look over the fields a little bit. I'm going to be using my local agency's application. I went to a whole bunch of different places trying to find the actual application for different agencies, and honestly, a lot of them are online now. I don't know if it's the whole COVID thing or what, but a lot of the application processes is online. Maybe that's just a sign of the times. I don't know. But we still have paper applications where I work, and I was able to finally find one on our website. So we're going to be looking at it. But before we do that, I just want to make sure and kind of go over a couple key items, okay? There's going to be a lot of information that's going to be going on this application, even though it's only 6 pages long. But there's a lot of information on there, and it's a little bit more elaborate than your typical application for like a fast food restaurant or Walmart or something like that. It's going to be a little bit more elaborate. There's a lot more fields, a lot more questions that are asked, and a couple of the things that are a little extended from a normal application, and we'll touch on them whenever we get to those segments. But for now, let's go on over. I'm going to do a little picture-in-picture thing here to show y'all what the application actually looks like, and we're going to go from there. So let's head on over and look at the actual application and talk about it a little bit. Alright, so this is the application for the Summerville County Sheriff's Office where I work at. Now, typically these applications are pretty much going to be the exact same thing. As far as the information that's required and stuff like that. And it's basically the same thing as well when it comes to everyday jobs. So you can take this information as well and kind of use it for other jobs, so just kind of a general overview on filling out an application. So the first section you'll see here is the employment desired. Now this, typically applications are used for more than one job. So in the first field, you're going to put in what you want, a 911 dispatcher or deputy, whatever. When you're available, and you typically want to do as soon as needed. I typically will do 2 weeks after hired if I currently have a job. If I don't have a job when I'm applying for a position, I'll put as soon as needed, or today's date, or something like that. But you always want to make sure that if you have a current job, to put something like 2 weeks after hired. That way you have time to give your current employer that 2 weeks notice after you're officially hired. So the next section there is the salary desired. Now, salary desired is something that can be a little bit tricky. You can put whatever is listed on the website on the listing. In ours it has I'm not sure what it has, but you'll typically say it'll have a range. Like, say for example, 32 to 37 starting, or 32,000 plus, or $16 an hour, or something like that. There's two different sides of the coin when it comes to this field. You can put whatever you're wanting to make. If you currently have a job and you're making $21 an hour, you could put $21 an hour here. Granted, you might not get that $21 an hour, but you can put it on there. But you don't want to say, okay, I'm making $21 an hour now, I'm going to put 15 on here. That way I can make sure and get hired, because that doesn't necessarily work. And if you're willing to take $15 an hour, they may pay you $15 an hour, especially if it's a non-government job, something where they set the wages instead of the county commissioners or city council or something like that. So what I typically like to do on the salary desired field is put will discuss or open or something like that. Next, application date. Are you employed? Can they contact the employer? The next thing, do you have any blood or marriage related people that work for that agency? A lot of times agencies will have rules where couples or brother sister or something like that can't work in the same department or can't work on the same shift as one another, just because, you know, if you have say a husband and wife that are working the same shift together, and they're both dispatchers and they have an argument in the middle of shift, well, you got drama in your dispatch center, or even, you know, something a lot worse. If something happens to a family member, you're going to lose that two people off that shift, and if all you have is two people, you're going to lose that entire shift because both those people are related to the person that passed away, so they're going to be going to the funeral and stuff. So they have rules in place typically to where you can't work the same shift. Same thing goes like if you're married to an officer, or you are an officer and you're marrying a dispatcher or something like that. You don't necessarily want to put the couples on the same shift, because if something happens to the officer in the field, that dispatcher might be distracted, and you can't have that. There are people that do that. There are agencies that have that. Husband and wife will work. One's a dispatcher, one's an officer, and they do fine. You know, it all comes down to you and your professionalism. Have you ever applied for Somervell County before? If you have, then click yes. If you haven't, then click no, or check no, or whatever. Typically what this will allow them to do is look back at your past history. Have you gone through the interview process? If you have, why were you denied employment? Was it something in your background? Was it something in your interview, or what have you? And then, of course, when are you available to work? You always want to click on check all these. If you only say, I only want to work part-time, or I only want to work weekdays, or something like that, that doesn't work in law enforcement. You have to work when you have to work. We're a 24-hour business, so that's the way you have to have it. All right, so moving on down to personal information. This is just your typical information: name, date of birth, social security number, email address, so on and so forth. Pretty straightforward. Next up is your education, whether you have a high school diploma or not. You have to have a high school diploma or GED in order to work in any kind of law enforcement, fire, or a government job. That's just a requirement to get your license. At least here in the state of Texas, I'm sure it is elsewhere as well. Did you go into college? Do you have college credit hours? Do you have a degree? A lot of times with your certificates on your license class here in the state of Texas anyways, if you have a master's degree in criminal justice, you have less training hours that you have to take after you are licensed in order to move up. And some agencies will pay shift differential pay, as far as if you have a intermediate or advanced or master's license, you'll get a boost. So that's something you always want to make sure to do. Whether you have any military service, are you currently in the military, are you in the reserve, or something like that, you put that on there. Whether you had an honorable discharge or not, that kind of information can go a long ways into getting you hired. Employment history. Now, here's one thing that will differ from regular jobs to government jobs, especially like in law enforcement. You have to put the last 10 years of employment, and that's every job that you have. If you had a job for 9 months and then went somewhere else and worked for a year and went somewhere else and worked for 2 weeks and then went somewhere else and worked for 6 months, you have to put every single solitary job that you've ever had in the last 10 years. And then also you have to make sure that you account for any non-working times. So if you got laid off of a job and you couldn't find a job for 6 months, you have to put that in there as well. And you can add additional sheets if needed to go on there. Most of the time you probably will, because in this one there's only 4 spots on there. So if you didn't have one job for 10 years or a couple jobs, 4 jobs for 10 years, then add an extra sheet. Next up is the special skills and qualifications. Your driver's license information will go here. Any certifications that you have, whether you're like me, I'm a master telecommunicator, so I would put that there. Any trade school, professional stuff that you've had here, what your typing level is. Most agencies for a 911 dispatcher will require at least 35 words a minute, so if you don't have that, make sure you start studying. And like we mentioned on previous things, there's a bunch of places out there that you can do to help that. All right, moving on. General information here, whether you're whether you can actually work in the United States, are you a citizen, are you over the age of 18, so on and so forth. And then references. You always want to put references on there that are not working really, not family members. You don't want to put your dad and your sister and your cousin on there. You want to put somebody that you've worked with. You want to put somebody that knows you well enough, a friend that you've known for a long time, an next door neighbor, something like that. Somebody that's not family. You always want to put that on your references, even if it doesn't say it. Don't put family members on there because they're biased, and references don't always work out when they're family members. And that's pretty much it as far as the application goes. You sign the bottom of that page, and then on the very last page of ours, and this is the same on other agencies as well, is a release for personal information. This will allow the agency that you're applying for to get information from other agencies, to get previous employer information, so on and so forth. And this one has to be notarized as well. So make sure you always look for something that has to be notarized in order to, to get what you need. So anyways, that is the application. That's our application that we have. And it's typically, like I said, the same in pretty much every agency. Will be pretty much the same. In the next episode, or in the next video we're going to be doing, this one is on Monday, so the next video will be on Thursday. We're going to be going over the background packet. It's going to be a little bit longer. There's a whole lot of information in there. It's about like a 40-page or more packet that you have to fill out, and it goes way in depth, more than the application does. So that video might be a little bit longer. Might have to break it up into 2 parts, but we'll see. Maybe I can kind of speed through it a little bit and just kind of show y'all what the general overview of it is, or something along those lines. But in the meantime, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss any of these videos. All this month I'm talking about how to become a 911 dispatcher and the steps that it entails, doing the application, doing the background packet, doing the interview, and so on. So if you have anybody that is becoming a 911 dispatcher or wanting to, or are recent new hires, make sure that you share this video, share my channel with them, and I greatly appreciate that. Also, follow me over on TikTok as well, Texas 911 Dispatcher over there. I do a lot of like behind the scene things a little bit, maybe life as a dispatcher outside of being a dispatcher. So yeah, anyways, that is all that I have. Thank y'all very much for watching, and until next time, y'all, stay safe out there.